Welcome to chapter 14 of the book of 2Chronicles. We're going through these histories of the kings and all these chapters in Chronicles, but if this is not some type of a historical go-through to learn about the history of the Jews and the kings, but it's to learn lessons that God would teach us through His Word. So in every chapter, I like to find something that would relate to us today, that will affect our lives in our walk with the Lord. It begins in chapter 14, and Abijah slept with his fathers. That was the son of Rehoboam, the grandson of Solomon. So he died, and they entombed him in the city of David, Zion, Jerusalem, the metropolis, and Asa, his son, took reign. Vasilevs and the Vasilef is the king, and here is the verbal form of taking reign, becoming king, basically. Asa was his son, and so he now is the focus of these three chapters, 14, 15, and 16. More on Asa than a lot of the kings. There are a few others that cover 4 chapters. In the days of Asa, the land of Judah was quiet, decade. Decade comes from that, 10 years. Geology, a study of the earth. And he did the good and upright thing before the Lord, his God. And he removed the altars of the aliens and the high places and broke the monuments and cut down the sacred groves. And they were put there, originating probably with Solomon's when he was in old age, with his wives, who he married from all these countries, that started all of this. And the removing of these hindrances to the worship of Yahweh, Jehovah, however you want to pronounce it, is important. And it's sort of one of the lessons we can learn in this chapter is removing those hindrances to God, the high places, the monuments, the things that we spend our time in front of. Use the word worship, which I really don't like to use because it was a King James word for doing obeisance. But anything that we spend our time with other than God, we need to remove them, as Asa did, whether it's a TV or people in our lives that don't do us any good or do us harm to be around. All sorts of hindrances. A job, if it's really an ungodly type of a job, then you can always quit in the United States and get another job. Maybe not another country so easily, but to remove and cut down these hindrances is something that I see as a thing that the Lord gives us in this chapter today. And he spoke to Judah to seek after the Lord God, Asa did, of their pateron, and to observe the nomon, the law and the commandments that God had given Moses on Sinai, and to observe these. And another thing that we can learn is to obey the commands of God and to observe His laws. The main law that Christ teaches us is the law of love, loving God first and loving our neighbors as ourselves. And these are the laws that Christians are to obey. We don't have these dietary laws and all these. Of course, there's the 10 Commandments, then they are to be obeyed. They're not killing, stealing, and so forth. And Asa removed he from all the cities of Judah the altars and the idols, and the kingdom was at peace before him. So when you remove all these things, your life is much more peaceable. So if you have things that are ungodly, then once you're able to remove them, some of them are very difficult. It may take years and years and years to get rid of these things and clean up the act. There was this great song I heard years ago at a rescue mission when I was preaching. It was all about a man who got a call from Jesus and said that Jesus said he's coming over to his house. So, and it was all in a song. And as they were singing it, and so the beginning, so the man runs around and he gets the cigarette packages and he goes and opens up the closet and he throws all the cigarettes in there and he runs and finds the wine bottles and liquor. He goes over to the closet and throws the liquor in there and he goes and finds his Playboy magazines or whatever, takes them and throws them in the closet and all these things they didn't want Jesus to see. So if you don't want God to see them, then they shouldn't be in our lives. So then Jesus comes knocking on the door and walks in, and he had a whole house spick and span. So Jesus goes walking around and walks in the kitchen. I'm like, wow, that's really nice. The kitchen, the bedroom, and every place. And Jesus walks over towards the closet, and all of a sudden the guy jumps in front of it, puts his hands out, and he says, you can have anything and see anything in my house, but the closet belongs to me. And that was the name of the song. The closet belongs to me. I haven't heard it since, and I don't know. Maybe somebody has heard it who wrote it, could write me and let me know. It'd be interesting to know if it's under copyright or not. And Asa, and he built wall cities in the land of Judah. So he builds up these cities down in the southern part. For there was peace in the land, and there was not war to him, polemics, as war in these years. For the Lord gave rest to him. So when the Lord gives us rest, it's a wonderful thing. And we do the things and build up, strengthen the things that God does give us that are working well. Our marriage, employment, our businesses, our finances, don't get overly in debt, and a lot of things that we are to strengthen. Teaching our children, sending them to Christian schools, so forth. I went to, my parents sent me to a Christian grade school and a Christian high school and then a university. And my mother ironed clothes back in the olden days when shirts and pants needed to be ironed for business people. And this was back in the 40s, 1945. I graduated from high school in 1959. And she ironed all those years to send me to the school. And then, this is the thing that are important to us, to do these things and build on these things. And he said to Judah, we should build these cities, and we should make walls and towers and gates and bars in which the land we dominate. For as we sought the Lord our God, he sought us and rested us round about. So we defend the good things that are with us of the Lord. And they built and prospered, and I believe we will too. And there was to Asa a force, dynamis, dynamite comes from that word, of armor bearers, lifting shields and spears in Judah. 300,000 300,000. And in Benjamin, the other tribe in this Judah, was men armed with small shields and bowmen, 280,000, so 500,000. All these were warriors of dynamios, power. And Zerai in the Greek, the Ethiops came forth against them in a force, dynami, with 1,000 thousands, and that is 1,000,000 people, and with 300 chariots, and came unto Mareshah. So the Ethiopians apparently have been coming up and encroaching on the land of Judah and taking over cities in the south, in the Negev. And finally, I guess they decided, well, they're going to come and they are going to take the whole country. And Mareshah in our map here is down here towards the Negev. This is an old map here. I don't know if I got the new one. No, I didn't. It's too bad. So it's way over here, right in here, Marishah, and then Geber is a little bit even further south, below Gaza. This is all Gaza over in here. And Asa came forth to meet against him, and deployed for war in the ravine to the north of Marishah. And Asa yelled to the Lord his God, and said, O Lord, it is not impossible for you to deliver by many or by few. No, that's an act of faith to say that. Lord, you can deliver with a few people, or you can do it with a lot. Basically, you are in control, and this is what I try to tell people that I know that aren't Christians. They have a hard time accepting that God is in control, and the only thing we have, me and you, we have free will. He gives us free will, but it's very limited. There's not much we can do with the free will. We can walk away from God. Basically, the free will that we're given is for our obedience and our relationship to God. Our health, we have a little bit of things we can take pills and so forth and go to the doctor, but can't help it. I broke my leg, slipped in the grass, and so I went to the orthopedic surgeon, and they set my leg, and then when I went back to check it out, I'm sitting in his office, and he has all these ski magazines. And I went in there and I said, wow, that's kind of strange. An orthopedic surgeon, you have all these ski magazines with all these people breaking their legs. And he says, well, what should I have? A gardening magazine? You broke yours slipping in the grass. So we don't have control over everything. Politics, the world, no. There's hardly any power. The only choices I can make are basically getting up and working and things like that, and then the things that come, spiritual things that come against me, to either walk with the Lord or not to walk with the Lord. And most of the times I choose to walk with the Lord, but sometimes I don't. And that's a free will that we're given, and it's a test, I believe. And so here the King of Judah is showing his faith in who God is. Help us, O Lord our God, for upon you we yield. They're not yielding on their weapons here, he's saying, which is what God wants. And in your name we came against this vast multitude. Pali, many, multitude. Plethora, plethos. Plethora is a derivative. O Lord our God, you are God. So he is now recognizing that God is God. Let not man prevail against you. So he sought the Lord, and then he's yielding to God. First, one thing if you didn't know who God was, and he says, help us, O Lord our God, so he's recognizing, he's seeking the Lord. Well, now, if you seek the Lord, but upon you we yield. But if you don't yield to what he says, well, then it's kind of a waste of time. People ask things of the Lord, but then they don't put themselves in the position to be yielding for what he wants. And it's mostly what I want, or they want, you want. So, O Lord our God, you are God. Let not man prevail against you. And the Lord struck the Egyptians before Asa, and before Judah. And the Ethiopians fled. And so they head south back towards Africa. And Asa pursued after them and his people unto Gerar. In the Greek Gerar, which is down south of the Gaza, down almost into the Negev, where Abraham and Isaac had went that far down. And the Ethiopians fell so as to not be in procurement of safety for themselves. For they were defeated before the Lord and before his force. So here it's interesting, the writer in 2Chronicles is bringing out, they were defeated before the Lord. That wasn't their army, wasn't and they were defeated because of the Israeli army, and then, well, God helped a little bit too, No, it wasn't. They were defeated before the Lord. The Lord was first. The Lord defeated them, and the Lord will defeat our enemies. And nothing that we can do except ask for him to do it, because we don't have the control to solve all these problems in our life. So we always need to go to the Lord first, and then he will take over and be our shield holder. And the Psalm says so many, an antileptor is a Greek word. Had these big, huge shields, and a man stood there in front of the warriors with the shield, holding his shield, and he is our shield holder. And they despoiled many spoils, and God will allow us to spoil others that I believe he uses the people, the Christians and others, to take over in a lot of the ungodly things that are going on. And this has happened throughout the history of Christianity. But now we have a revolt against the Christians and Christianity, and people are trying to get rid of that. And as they do, then all of a sudden the spoils are fewer and fewer, and all of a sudden these people that are getting rid of Christianity will be despoiled by the enemy, which God has done so many times, as we see in the Old Testament, by using an enemy. And one place where God said he was going to use Sennacherib or somebody, Assyrians, to defeat Israel or Judah, and they said, well, they're worse than we are. But yes, he uses somebody worse than we are to defeat us, to defeat the people that are against us, rather. And they knocked down their towns round about Gerar, and that was whatever the Ethiopians had been built up down that southern part. For there became an ecstasis. In the Greek, an ecstasy is a derivative, a change of state of the Lord upon them. They were, whoa, I mean, we had this million-man army, and we were completely defeated by this other country. All these chariots, and I'm not sure how many chariots Israel have. It didn't say, and it doesn't say exactly how it happened. Might have been a miraculous way that just caused them to be in awe. And the people from Judah, plundered all the Ethiopian cities, for many spoils came to them, to the people of Judah. And indeed the tents of the cattle they cut down, and took many sheep and camels, and returned to Jerusalem. And the tents of the cattle they cut down. So I'm not exactly sure what type of a tent the cattle were in, some type of a enclosure, I suppose. Maybe it was around where they like a corral in the United States, where they put the cattle within this area. That could be what it means by a skinos, a tent. Maybe other meanings on this word. So they returned unto Jerusalem. Our next chapter is Azariah's prophecy. He comes to Asa, and we'll find out about this man, prophet, in the 15th chapter. And I hope you'll join us in chapter 15 of the book of 2 Chronicles, and God bless.